Big Mom's house. Big Mama's house. Welcome to Big Mama's house. Big Mama's house. Yeah. Big Mama's house. Welcome to Big Mama's house. Big Mama's house. Yeah.
Welcome back to Big Mama's house, y'all. I am back with chapter 6 of the Sister Wives book, Becoming Sister Wives, the story of an unconventional marriage. Um, it I went a little bit long with chapter 5, which was Mary, and this is the middle section entitled Sorority. So basically, it's how they all, from each one's perspective, how the wives, dealt with each coming into the family or having another one come into the family, and kind of really fast forwards and just gives a really quick overview of what happens basically after in the first 16 years. Okay. So chapter 6, this is Janelle's perspective. I was enchanted with the idea of polygamy when I married Cody. Same as Mary, right? I was in love with my new faith and with the possibilities of love, family, and sisterhood it offered. Like Mary, I imagined that my new sister wife, Mary, would immediately become my best friend. Like Mary, I believed that Cody would have no trouble navigating between us. Like Mary, I was so taken by the love story notion of happily ever after that I was completely unprepared for the reality that awaited me. Like Mary. So it seems like even though Janelle is, I can't remember, 2 or 3 years older than Mary, and had been married once and divorced, it seems like, none of these women had any clue what was really going to happen because I guess no one ever told them. And that is just wrong, in my opinion. Sending someone into something blind that you basically taught them into or pushed them into or, raised them into that life. So I don't know. And she says, immediately after moving in with Mary and Cody, I began to lose my sense of self. That is little spoiler for you guys, a couple chapters ahead. They all feel that way when they first come into the family. And it makes me really sad and almost irritated that no one ever talked about it. Their mothers, their grandmothers, aunties, sisters, each other. Like, there's no communication in this community or in this family. And it really makes me crazy because if you ask my family, I like to talk about things, talk things through, understand it. And that's not always easy. So um, I feel for them. She says, when I was young, I lacked self esteem. I struggled with body image. Girl, I get that. I think a lot of us can relate to that. So I get you, Janelle. She said, I enjoyed working. Having a career would be one of the things that would matter most to me and bring me a sense of security and happiness. Um, I also get that. And that's why my disability has been like incredibly hard because that was my sense of self. I was a worker, I provided, and then I still came home and cooked and cleaned and did the whole, super mom thing. And so when I became disabled, like my entire world like fell apart a little bit or a lot, I'll be real. So I totally can relate to this, and it's, you know, Janelle being the more not like overtly emotional or, especially back then, like not very communicative with her emotions at all. This is really important because, hang on, Rascal's having a wheeze. Hold on. You okay, buddy? Sorry, guys. Had to check on my little dude, Rascal. Um, but I don't remember what I was saying, but it's like, I get that that would make you feel secure that, like, I have this in myself. This is my identity. I can help provide for the family. It makes me feel good personally. And when you feel good about something about yourself, especially, you are happier. So I totally, and you feel more secure when you can provide for yourself as well. So I totally feel that. And she says, especially when my first marriage failed, working gave me an inner strength and confidence. Well, yeah, because at least, you had that one area of your life where, you kicked ass and you were really, really good at something. And that everyone needs that to have like that little bit of self-confidence. After Cody and I returned from our honeymoon, I moved into the guest bedroom of his and Mary's house. In no time, I came to feel like a guest who had overstayed her welcome. Like I had barged not into their home, but in their marriage. Mary and I went from cordial to frosty overnight. And we heard from Mary's thing that, like, she thought it was going to be great. And then when it happened, like, the reality of it just kind of blindsided her. And so, I mean, both of these women have been through so much. And especially, like, they are both very honest, I think, in these chapters. And she says, she was raised in a family that believed in keeping the waters smooth. I'm a pleaser. I was raised to be non confrontational. Many, many times I wanted to tell Mary off, give her a piece of my mind, but I just buttoned my lip and did things her way as best as I could. I was this way when I was younger. The pleaser, I was the smart one, the good one, the reliable one, the mature one. And like my friends would like, their parents would let me hang out with them because like I was a good influence. Little did they know, like that was just kind of a front. But, you know, I get that. I was not, I did not have any confidence. I didn't know how to be assertive at all, like not aggressive, just assertive. I was either nothing or I blew up. So I get that here. And she says, I know now that our experience is by no means unusual for young plural families. I mean, yeah, because no one's telling anybody anything about, so nobody knows what to expect. Crazy. Says I began to physically distance myself as much as I could. I would spend time at work, go out to spend time at the family ranch, and then come home and go straight to my room. Um, Again, she didn't know how to integrate herself in, and they didn't either. And so everybody was just learning the very hardest way as they went. She says, my mother and Cody's father lived only half an hour away, so I spent as much time up there as I could. And she says, Mary and I rarely spoke to each other, but we tolerated each other. We were like roommates who didn't get along, but managed to live together all the same. This was not the celestial plural marriage I imagined. Again, I'm pretty sure that they all, all three of them at this point were like, yeah, this sucks. This is not what I thought it was going to be, and what do I do? She says often Cody would take Mary with him when he worked out of state, which made me very resentful of her. Of her. Not Cody. That right there is the biggest issue. They give Cody a pass on everything and lay everything at each other's feet. And that is not how a relationship works. Um, and she said, I couldn't just take off from work as she seemed to be able to. But when Mary didn't work, she didn't get paid. And I thought it was extremely flaky to blow off work for fun like that. Now, was it fun? Was it just to go hang out? Or was it like, since she was traveling for work, was it like an assistant kind of thing to help him out, give him a break? I don't know. Um, but I agree, if she was not getting paid for that and she was just being like a helper to her husband, or whatever, and she was just blowing out, calling out of work just to go, especially as often as they've talked about how little money they had. Again, I'm the financial planner in our house. I'm the one responsible for trying to figure out how to make the ends meet. And so I feel this. I do. Um, she says, I was left at home in an unfamiliar small town in Wyoming, far away from most of the people I knew. It was a terribly bleak time for me. And I mean, I can feel the words from her on this page. And why didn't she talk to either of them at the time to help make it better? And again, I'm saying that as me now, but me, 30 years ago when I was very young and, first married to my first husband, I didn't know how to speak up without, I didn't want to be the naggy wife, or, I didn't want to, rock the boat, and yeah, it's hard to be able to speak up for yourself sometimes. So I get that too. She says, while I was aware that my mother was involved in many of the same personal and emotional struggles as I was, we didn't discuss them often. We supported each other and were available to each other, but we never explored the depths of our conversion together. And that is so odd. Again, it's like, especially when this is supposed to be a new faith, and the faith was brought into because, your father married again, and I, I don't understand how nobody speaks to each other. That is making me nuts. Okay, she says, I hadn't simply left all my friends and family behind, but I'd also alienated many of them by accepting polygamy. So, yeah, she and her mom obviously now had family members who would not have anything to do with them because of that, and that's awful hard. Plus, she moved away, new husbands that, they don't really know each other on like a deep level, like spouse level, and, her sister wife, and she hate each other. So, that I do. My heart goes out to you at this point, She says, my sister and her husband and some other family members even went so far as to stage a small scale intervention to reconvert me, or as they saw it, save me. And she says, with this when she was 8 months pregnant, they told me that what I was doing by living with Cody, they did not recognize our marriage, was wrong. I was furious and hurt. Even eventually, I disengaged myself from them and told them they could basically stuff it, and then waited for Cody and Christine to come to get her. Um, that's horrible. And, on one hand, I'm glad your family loves you, and maybe now at this point in your life, you can see that while you couldn't change, as a mother, I could never change anything about my first relationship because I got my children. And I'm pretty sure Janelle would feel the exact same way. So, but maybe she could see that those family members were just afraid for her and were trying to show how much they cared and how worried they were. She says, over time, I've rebuilt many of these relationships, but those first years when I was new to the principal, losing my family really hurt. At least I still had my mother for support, which made me feel as if I was not entirely shunned. That's sad. But I'm glad that she had her mother, and even though they didn't really discuss it, they both did know they were going through some of the same things. Um, this next part here, I'm irritated. And to me, word choice matters in a written format because it really gives more of your intent and your, the meaning behind the story. And here it says, normally I would have turned to my career as an outlet to bolster my self confidence. But when I married Cody, I'd been forced to quit my stable job in Utah and move to Wyoming. Girl, no. You chose to marry that man. Okay? You know where he lives. You know that, or if you didn't know that they are kind of like a roaming family, then you should have before you married them and moved in. I have a lot of issues with forced. Okay? I don't. No, you're an adult. You made choices. Sorry. I love you, Janelle, but on this one, I'm calling you out. Um, And so where they moved to, it was a much smaller area with not many jobs available. And she said, well, I did manage to find a job. I felt that I had wandered far off course from my career goals. And I understand that. I've been there. Shit, I am there. But no, no, no. These are your choices. And so yeah, sorry. You know where I'm at with that. About 6 months after she married Cody, she discovered that she was pregnant, extremely excited. And now she said it made her feel as though she was an important member of the Brown family. And I get at this point, like especially that first 6 months, being extremely tense and whatever. And she says, I was proud to be bringing the first child into our world. And we know that because of their relationship, maybe she rubbed it in Mary's face just a little. Let's see. She said, I knew that I would be uncomfortable telling Mary that I was pregnant. she was unable to conceive after 3 years of marriage. However, I have to say that I didn't care how she felt about my news. If it upset her, so be it. Things were incredibly tough in our relationship, so her feelings were of little importance to me at that moment. Ooh. And again, I told you these are some of the most honest chapters in some ways. Damn, girl. I mean, you're human and you're female, and to me, this was you like staking your claim. Okay, and I get that. And I mean, one part of me is like, hell yeah, you go, girl. And the other part of me, like the healthier part of me, is like, mm. And I know now, obviously, you probably wouldn't do that, or maybe it felt really good and you said fuck her and you do it again anyway. But yeah, maybe not the kindest and most, you know, um, integrating thing to do. But hey, that's just me. She says, during my pregnancy, relations between Mary and me reached an all-time low. I bet. Rubbing that pregnant belly all up in Mary's face. Yeah. While she never overtly made me feel unwelcome in the house, I rarely ventured out into the rest of the home. Okay. Those are your choices. You felt a certain way, so you isolated yourself. I'm girl, I'm offering you some accountability here, okay? So that's how I feel about it. You made these choices and it sucked, but you did that, okay? And she said, my pregnancy hormones were making me feel especially vulnerable. Every pregnant lady in the world right now is going, oh, girl, I feel that, or anyone's been pregnant, I mean. So, So she said, she feels that Mary took advantage of the situation and be exceptionally brutal. She was making fun of some makeup that Janelle and her friends had been doing on her, and it would made her cry, and her makeup was running, and um, yeah, and as her little pregnant self said, this was the final straw after all the passive aggressive behavior and snide remarks I had been dealing with for so many months. I completely lost it. And again, this whole interaction for like dang near a year now has been because of no communication. That is the entire number one issue. And yeah, obviously they communicate in different ways, and being young and jealous and resentful and just each feeling left out in their own way. Yeah, that's a lot of emotions, and that's going to breed a lot of anger toward each other, even though Cody's just his fault, you guys. What the hell are you just blaming each other for? And she says to Cody, I just need to know that you love me. So, yeah. So he feels like he's the Prince Charming riding in to save the pregnant princess from the mean old witch Mary. And so he was like, oh, she does love me and whatever. And, oh, yeah. So that's her and Mary so far. And then it goes into right before I gave birth to Logan, Cody began courting and then married Christine. So, what is it about bitchin' pregnant ladies with Cody? Because, so, he's got his first wife, Mary, having trouble conceiving. Second wife, Janelle, pregnant within 6 months, and then about ready to give birth. Oh, I think I need another one. These are getting used up. I need a new one. So that's my opinion right there. And and then of course he does the same thing to Christine with Robin. When Christine is about ready to give birth to Truly, he's off kissing Robin. I just, dude, he's just gross. Okay. And she says, it didn't occur to me to be jealous. I suspect that Christine's arrival would take a lot of Mary's focus off me, get me out of the line of fire, if you will. And in that, I'm wondering, does that mean that Christine is going to pick up some of that slack for you? You're hoping that Christine gets in the line of fire instead of you? That's just a quick passing thought I had. During their brief courtship, I was heavily pregnant, so I didn't have a lot of time or energy to worry about a new sister wife. I didn't know Christina as well as Mary did, but she seemed nice and sweet, if a little naive. Well, she was young, and again, in this religion, very innocent, sheltered, that kind of thing. She said, I expected we would be better friends than Mary and I were, and I looked forward to that. And that's great. I mean, that is very sweet. Like, Janelle never acts like she seems to need people, but I think that's very sweet that she was looking forward to that. She said, at first, Christine came across as something as of a little princess. And I'm reading that into being, I did not like her because Janelle is more of the workhorse. She's the one that plows the field and harvests and does all the really hard work and puts food on the table. But the little princess, the little cute pony came prancing in and going, "Hi," and I can see Janelle not being, you know, into all that. But that's just me. She says, I was baffled by the fact that Christine didn't believe that she needed to work in order to contribute to the family. It's funny to say these things now because over the years, Christine has morphed into the cornerstone of our household stability and has worked tirelessly for everyone. This was written in 2013, 10 years ago. And every chapter, okay, they all talk about how Christine saved the family, saved our bacon. She made the browns. She's our backbone. She's the heart of the family. And yet, this is how, a decade later, things have turned out. It just blows my mind. And she says, despite minor misgivings, Christine was a boon to our family. Almost overnight, the atmosphere in the house changed. As Cody likes to say, Christine saved our bacon. After a few months, Christine and Mary developed a camaraderie that allowed Mary to forget her grievances against me. I don't understand that at all. Okay, so she and Mary became buddies, and so maybe because she was happier, maybe she was just able to be a nicer person because when you're super miserable and depressed and down, especially about fertility, um, it can make you like mean. I mean, I don't know anybody who has dealt with a major serious depression and has been forced to like kind of instead of laying in bed with the covers over their head like I would do right now because I have no reason to get up. These women still had to get up and do their everyday stuff. And didn't even get a chance to really talk about it or deal with it. So I don't think these grievances were gone. I think Mary was just able to be a little happier, and that made her a happier person. Again, just my opinion. I don't know these people, but I would love to talk to them and find out if anything that I'm thinking here is real. Um, she said, once the dust settled between my sister wives and they were able to put aside their initial petty jealousies that crop up at the beginning of almost any plural marriage, they spent a lot of time together. They had their own friendship, which I wasn't part of. They would run to the store together or go off on small adventures. I felt as if I was being purposely excluded. And she says, but I have always been overtly sensitive to exclusion, even if I didn't want to be part of the activity I was being left out of. Oh, Janelle, again, so much honesty. And again, this is real. Everyone in some point is a conundrum, and their own like paradox, their own, oxymoron. Like, I'm also very sensitive to exclusion. Not now at this point in my life, but when I was younger, very, very much so. And even if like my brothers were going down to play in the mud and catch snakes and whatever, and if they didn't ask me to go, I would be sad and hurt, and I would never say anything. I would just, my mother would call it a pout, and I believe it was off to just feel really shitty about myself that my brothers didn't love me or want me to come along. And that's not a conscious thought in a kid. It's just the feeling, and at the time I couldn't have even named the feeling or described it, but that's what I know it is now. So yeah, I get that, but at the same time, you have to own some of that. You did not, try to be included. If you wanted to go to the store or wanted to be included, be like, hey man, I need some baby stuff for Logan. I need to get out of this house. Let's go, Oh, or something, make an effort. That's all, everyone has to make an effort. You can't just lay it on everyone else to do it for you. Okay. Our lives became more peaceful. I got a decent job at a government agency with good pay and started to feel a little bit more confident about my career path. And that's awesome. I get that. Feeling more financially stable, having that self-esteem thing that you have your own thing you're good at. I get it. And she said a greater sense of camaraderie sprung up out of raising our children together. Because at that point, they all had children. And that's great. She said, for the most part, Mary, Christine, and I were able to put aside our differences and create a warm and stable environment for our kids. I believe that's true. Um, it seems like, especially in the videos, that at the time they were all fairly happy because they'd just gotten into again, the show when they first got into the house in Lehigh together. And she says, I loved co-parenting our kids. I was able to work while Mary and Christine homeschooled the children who weren't sent to our church school. Okay. I never worried when my children were out of my sight. I trusted Mary and Christine to handle every situation and to make all parental decisions in my absence. It was lovely. I mean, and for someone who is more focused and, again, she's always said, I'm not the snuggly type, I'm not the romance type. And so that she could come home and just have dinner with her kids and help them, with their homework or whatever, and get them to bed. That is the best type of mother, for her to be. And she had great mothers at home during the day to do the daytime stuff, which, again, it was lovely for her. So I think that's great. And she said, most of the time when one of my kids got injured, I wouldn't find out about it until I got home from the office. By then, everything would have been taken care of by my sister wives. Whichever child had been hurt would be soothed, and the accident was already a fading memory. I don't know. I mean, whenever I was first starting out in the workforce after I got divorced, and Lizard was 2.5 maybe, um, I had my gram at home who would help with them. But one day, Lizard was running around the house and she fell and split her head open. And my gram had to take her to get stitches in her little forehead. And she did not call me beforehand because she knew I would just freak out. And she was like, it was 2 stitches. She did great. She didn't even cry. It's all fine now. But I felt horrible that I didn't know and that I wasn't there because I would have straight up taken off of work and met him at the hospital. Um, but again, every parent has different, boundaries with things like that or things that they're able to let go of. I couldn't let go like that. That's just me. Um, and she says, I'm not good at arts and crafts, and my cooking and baking skills are not anything to boast about. Although that's changed recently, right, Janelle? Right? You got a cooking thing going on? She says, as always, I prefer to lose myself in my work. So my major contribution to the family is financial and practical. And if a birthday party were left up to me, I'd rush off to the supermarket on my way home from work and pick up a sheet cake with greasy blue roses. Thankfully, I have Christine in my family. Because Christine was a stay-at-home mom and did all the fun stuff with, like, parties and planning things and all that good stuff. I love the party planning. It's my jam. So I'm with you on that. Even though I clash with Christine and Mary from time to time, I'm thrilled that my kids would have had the benefit of both of their personalities. And that is true. Even if you're, I think if everyone had the same personality as Janelle, all of her kids would be a little less, um, I don't know, outgoing maybe because they all seem fairly outgoing kids. Um, and she said, they have helped me create 6 wonderful, well-rounded children. And about 5 years into the marriage, after Christine had joined the family, she says, Cody did all this awesome growth, and he's a big stud husband and daddy now. Okay, enough about Cody. This was an interesting thing here. It says, although Cody had matured significantly, with such a large family, we still had trouble making ends meet. For much of the first decade of my marriage, I lived with either Mary or Christine. Our house was crowded, and paying the bills was always a challenge. We never had enough money, no matter how hard we worked. This was the main point of contention in any argument I had with Cody. That, and that we were practically on top of one another in our small house. There wasn't any room to breathe or think. I believe that because at 10 years in, he had the four adults and I don't know, six or so children at home, small children. That's crazy. Nope, I would have to have outside at least somewhere to go. um, Cody was the one and only stalwart in my life and the best and most hands-on father I'd ever seen. Okay, but up until this point, Cody had traveled for work a lot while the most of the older children were small. Okay, and I think that's kind of like why there was a gap in between some of the ages. Because he wasn't around. And so whenever he was home for a day or two, of course he can be, this high energy, hands-on, interested dad because it's for short bursts. Cody seems to be great at anything in short bursts, but there's no, um, he doesn't do well on the long term. I think this is why he's so miserable right now. Um, During their 8th year of marriage, they had their 5th child, and she got really, really horrible postpartum depression. And that's I had postpartum after Lizard was born, and I thought I knew what depression was, but that took me in entirely new depths of hell that I didn't know existed. So I sympathize with this. And she also had a really horrible fight with Mary at this point, and so she moved out. She was tired. She was just exhausted from having no room and money situation. So she's like, fuck this shit, I'm out. And so the next day, Cody's like, so are you better now? And she says, his failure to understand how low I was felt like a slap in the face. That afternoon, I bundled all the kids in the car and took them to my mom's. I had reached rock bottom. Yeah, I mean, 5 babies in 8 years, and things maybe kicking off again with Mary after the relative peace of Christine coming in. Yeah, in the postpartum, yeah, I can see you just haven't needed a break. Um, she said, my kids and I stayed with my mother, also Cody's dad's house, for several months until I found my own place. My job had a decent salary, which allowed me to buy a better car in addition to my own home. I started to build a life for myself. Wow. I mean, how much money was she making that she could, have, 5 kids and still, have a big enough house and car on her own? You go, girl. Soon after, she went back to school and got a degree in accounting, and getting a degree changed her world. She felt personally and intellectually fulfilled. I get it. I did the same thing, except I got my degree before I left my old man because I wanted to make sure that when I was on my own, I could take care of them on my own because I had no faith in him at all. She says the sense that I was taking control of my life and my future gave me invaluable self-confidence. Man, that you go, girl. After a while, Cody began staying at my house on our nights together. During the day, I would drive the children nearly 30 miles to Christine and Mary, who would provide daycare and homeschooling. Yet the separation did wonders for me. That's awesome. Just kind of like figuring out what you want and how you want it and how you go about getting it, right? Having my own space allowed me to focus on work and on school. Because I was so busy, I didn't have time to think about the petty stuff that was the source of so many of my earlier grievances with Mary. We moved on. Mary, Christine, and I each had our own home. My happiness and my independence allowed Cody and me to enter a new phase in our relationship, which is good, but I don't get what they mean by new phase. Like, how did it change? What phase, I don't. That could mean so many things to so many people. After 10 years of marriage, they finally had to get to know each other and enjoy their moments alone. She felt that the marriage was stronger than ever. 2 years later, Cody told them that they were moving to Utah and he had found a job where he wouldn't travel. So, again, this is 12 years into their marriage. So, their oldest kids were like 11 and under. So, again, up until this point, they had a travel daddy. He was never around on the every weeknight and every weekend. He was, that's not how it worked. And so that's great, he says. And she said, okay, see you later. And she goes, there was no way she's going to give up the peace and independence I had found. I had a great job. I had a great house. And she stood her ground for almost a year. So that's almost year 13 into their marriage, right? And she said, Cody had found a big house with 3 separate apartments, and each with its own living quarters, kitchen, living room, and bedrooms. I had been alone for months, and I could no longer deny that I was incredibly lonely. The big house changed everything. And I think that is true because she did not want to go back to feeling like she was living in someone else's home, and I don't blame her. But that is something that is all of their faults because there was no communication or compromise or anything going on, and that puts everybody to blame, in my opinion. She said, I never allowed myself to be emotionally vulnerable to Cody. I looked into the most romantic thing I could ever dream of, an ideal parent with whom I have an intellectual connection. So for her, romantic means being there, loving her kids, being consistent, you know, being able to talk and be intellectual with each other and not just have it be about sex, I guess. So I mean, and you know what? That isn't a bad thing. That's what her needs are, and that's what her needs are. Let's see. Because I'm afraid of being hurt, I throw up a wall and resist letting people in. In the big house, I found myself able to let him know when something was bothering me. I allowed myself to let him see when I was hurting and to help me if I needed it. And see right there, that's her taking ownership that she has to communicate to people what she needs or wants because nobody's a mind reader. So that I love that. That's awesome. Once I stopped listening to everyone else's voices in my head, I began to relax around my sister wives. Um, yeah, okay, this is a great advice for everybody. You can listen to all the advice, but you have to follow your heart. And if you let other people's opinions, whether good, bad, or indifferent, sway you or make you feel a certain way, you have to change the way you feel about what other people say. Because anybody can say anything. That doesn't make it true or right or whatever. You have got to have enough, you know, sense of self to be like, okay, no, just no. You know what I mean? So that's awesome, that she finally, figured that one out. That's great. And she says, like real sisters, we can look back on our collective struggles, our major arguments and silly squabbles, and if not laugh at them, at least shrug them off. Now we can't even remember what half the fights were about. Is that true? Because it seems to me that in all the seasons of The Wives, there's been multiple conversations about all the shit that went back to when they were first together and therapies about it. And, it's like these issues were never dealt with, and there's those issues are still there, and that's the fact that she says this makes me a little nuts. But okay, every day we all have to check our natural reactions to things and temper them. We have to be careful not to say things to one another in a hurtful manner. Every decision we make has to be grounded in what is best for the entire family as a whole. Okay, anybody's family out there, doesn't that just sound kind of like any relationship ever? Like, in what relationship your parent or your sibling or a spouse or a child or a best friend, you just say every damn thing that's on your mind. And you don't try to be like, make sure it doesn't come out snotty or hurtful. I mean, who does that? So, like, that's every relationship everywhere. And the fact that she makes it sound like it's a big deal is just a testament to everything that is wrong with how they were brought up. Just that's it. So, I don't know. She says, one of the things I had to work on once I moved into the big house with my sister wives was not falling into the pitfall of comparing my relationship with Cody to theirs. Comparison is the death of plural marriage. It is the death of any relationship. If you compare yourself again to your parents or your siblings or your even your spouse or your friends, you're going to make yourself unhappy. So do not compare apples and oranges or even apples and apples because you don't know how each of those apples was grown, what nutrients they were given, how much care was taken, was you don't know. So just don't. That's all I'm saying. Don't compare. It says we were able to make decisions as a group with a minimum of strife and bruised feelings. At this same point, Mary in her chapter says that she felt completely left out because she only had one child and everyone else had many. And so I don't know if that one is true, but from her perspective, she felt that way. And then she says, I didn't think that anything could disrupt our flow. And then she immediately after, I was fairly surprised when Cody came to me one afternoon and told me he was thinking about courting Robin. Well, that's what you get for thinking nothing could disrupt your flow because, haha. And she says he was very protective of Robin, so that when they eventually married, she would feel as if she was already belonged in our midst. Robin and Cody's courtship coincided with a huge development in our lives. We decided to participate in a reality TV show about our family. It drew out her courtship with Cody and forced their wedding to be put off for a few extra months. We learn about more of that in Robin's chapter. I was completely fine with Robin and Cody's courtship. It wasn't until after they got married that I started to struggle. Why? I mean, like, I don't understand how they all seem to be fine before the fact, but then boom, a wedding happens and all of a sudden reality. I don't understand that. I need someone, all of them from their own perspective to tell me why. Like, especially after the first one. It's not like it was, except for Christine, it wasn't the first one for anybody. So, I don't know. We decided that a good way to integrate our families was to enroll our kids, many of whom had been homeschooled, in a public school along with Robin's kids. If something, okay, here we go. We didn't have the time or the space to baby them. If something didn't go their way, tough. Get up, brush yourself off, get onto the next thing. We're not catering to you. Robin coddles her children more, which is certainly understandable given their previously tumultuous home life. Again, what? Explain that to me. What does that mean to you? Tumultuous to one person can be like having their parents argue, okay, and fighting and not getting your way or whatever, and maybe having a spouse that tells you no. That your term of tumultuous or abuse? I don't know. Explain to us because I really want to know. It might give us a little more insight into what the hell's going on with Robin. Sorry. And then she says, the most important thing Robin has taught us is how to argue in a more effective and polite manner. These days, it is often Robin who takes the lead in our family discussions, not Cody, the patriarch. Like, he lets her have power, but no one else? I don't understand. And she says, she never lets us leave the room until we've settled an issue. Because Robin's the boss. Robin doesn't let it happen. And she says, our rhythm was disrupted, and I'm afraid we were all a little brutal on her. And Robin went out of her way to extend olive branches to me. Okay, I want to know, how are you brutal? Explain that. That could mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. Be specific. There's a lot of generalities in this book, as I mentioned before, and it makes me crazy. And how, like, it says here that she would offer to, like, um, she would make special, like, personalized gifts for Christmas or help with homework with the kids or something. Like, that's just something everyone should do in a family. If you see a mom struggling or, kids needing help and not enough hands to go around, you pitch in. Like, that's family. Why is that an olive branch? I don't quite know. But she says, regardless of Robin's efforts, during the first year, I was unwilling to accept her offers. Despite my spiritual witness, because we know back in the first section, she's like, I knew it was ready. I knew it. And she goes, I found myself kicking and kicking against opening myself up to Robin. Just because something appears celestially destined doesn't make it easy. So true. And I think that's what they've all learned from all this message is that, yeah, it may feel right. It may feel like it's supposed to be, God's will, but damn, right? And she says, I wasn't sure that I needed or wanted to make room for a new person in my life, despite the fact that I felt spiritually convinced she would marry Cody. Um, okay, again, they had to draw their stuff out for a few months. Didn't anyone think about this before? Like, is there no forethought? And Janelle was the planner and the thinker. Like, I have a hard time with this. Um, I, I wish someone could explain it. And she said, I got tired of fighting against Robin and the potential friendship between us, so I started letting her in. Oh my, the witch is working. She has helped within our family. Oh, hang on. Where'd I go? She has helped within our family is pointed out in all areas in which all of the marriages need solidifying. Oh, she's helped the family by pointing out all areas in the marriages that need solidifying. Isn't that awesome of her? Like, oh, hey, I know I just got here, but you guys suck, and you guys suck, and you guys suck. But, I can fix it, you know? So she has helped Cody realize where he may be inadvertently shortchanging one of his other relationships. Now, many, many times, especially in the last season or two, Robin has been toting the fact that she says she doesn't discuss the other marriages with Cody. She doesn't talk about it. That's personal between them. She doesn't get involved. She doesn't want to be the middleman. Doesn't want to be the middleman. But she made it her business to be the middleman. Right? I think so. She said, Cody and I stopped talking to each other as husband and wife. Instead, we interacted like business partners. I discovered that there is unlimited potential to enrich our relationship. As a result, our marriage has grown deeper and more caring than I'd ever imagined it could be, or even knew that I wanted it to be. That's interesting. That is a sentence I want to delve into. Knew that she wanted it to be. Um, that yeah, that's awesome right there. And lastly, she says, sometimes you get along with your sisters and sometimes you want to kill them, but deep down you always love them. Always. Is that still true? That is something I would want to know. Is that still true for you? Do you still love your sister wives? Do you still love and trust Christine and Mary to take care of your children and, go off to work and not worry about them and know that they're going to be okay? That kind of thing. Like, there are so many discrepancies and generalizations and gloss overs that like trying to go back in the seasons to like figure out exactly where this is at. It's so convoluted and again, I would love to talk to anybody involved because I want to know how like what the reality of how it affected them and the changes they would have made maybe. Anyway, you guys, I know this one went really long and I apologize. There's just really long chapters for this section. So, I hope y'all have a great day. Be safe. Buckle up your seatbelt, spay and neuter your pets, and please be kind. Bye.